In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a full screen video background landing page. So that is a landing page that is the complete size of your screen with a video of your choice playing in the background. So I'm going to show you how to do this from scratch, and I'm going to include the HTML and CSS code, and you can, if you want, use that landing page by downloading it from this link here. So it's completely free and there's no copyrights at all. And if you're using something like a CMS like WordPress, Shopify, Wix or Squarespace, then the same principles still apply. I'm also going to show you where you can actually download background videos that you can commercially use. And I'm also going to show you how to improve your conversion rates on your landing pages. So stay tuned and I'm going to cover everything in this video. So the first thing that you're going to need in order to get started is you're going to obviously need a video background. So in order to get a video, all you need to do is search in Google for free video backgrounds. And this is a website that quickly popped up and there's no commercial restrictions at all. So I can use any of these images for free. So here's the image, here's the video that I am using, and I just download it and it's simply an MP4 file. So another thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to create a landing page.html file and a landing page styles.css file. So if you are using a content management system like WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or something like that, or Shopify, then you might not need to create these files, but the same principles will apply when we're actually adding the styles and the video. So you're going to need the video, you're going to need the HTML file and the CSS file. So if we load our landing page in a web browser, now obviously it's going to be completely blank, and that is because we haven't actually added any code. Now with HTML file, you need to add certain tags to the page, and I've loaded my landing page.html file in a code editor and it's completely blank. So what we first need to do is we need to add some template code. Now if you have a CMS like WordPress, for example, you will not need to do this. But if you don't and you're creating this from scratch, then we need to get the template code. So if we just search for something like basic HTML page template, and if we just click on a random page, then chances are it's going to have the code that we want. So I'm actually going to use my own code anyway, but if I just show, just to show you what it is, if I just paste in this code and then we refresh the page, then it's actually set up the structure that we need. Now I don't actually want to use their structure and I want to use my own, and I'll explain why. So I want to replace the head with my own. And when I replace my head, one thing you're going to need to do, again, if you use the CMS, you don't need to do this, but you will need to do the other stuff I'm going to explain. So if you're adding this for the first time, then you're going to need to change the title tag to the title of your page. It's good for SEO. Add the description of whatever your page is, just add it here, and then add some keywords that you're trying to target in the keywords meta tag. Now, something else you're going to need is the viewport meta tag, which wasn't included in the code that we pasted from the web. Now, you need this because you want to be able to target different viewports and different devices. So we might want to target different background styles on a device with a smaller screen, such as a mobile or tablet. So make sure you just add this line in order to do that. Now, one last thing we're going to need is we're going to need to add styles. So you don't necessarily need a link tag. You can add a style tag and then add your styles here. So background color red, for example. You can do it this way, but I prefer to have it in a separate file because it's just simpler. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're linking to the CSS file that we created. So this is called landing page styles.css. It's in the root directory. So all I need to do is just link to that file. So if I, for example, refresh, nothing will change apart from the content because we didn't change that. But yeah, in order to show that it's actually working, I just want to add a simple change. So if I change the background color to say pink, then if I refresh the page, then it shows that the style sheet is correctly linked and it's applying the styles that we want. So we've got all of the shell set up, and the next thing we need to do is add the content. So at this stage, our page is a bit blank, and the first thing we want to do is add the content. So we want to add the elements like the title, the description, and the button, and the video itself. We first of all want to add that to the page. So I'm just going to copy some code from the body on the solution, and I'm going to explain to you what everything does. So if I just refresh now, we have our landing page code template, header 1 tag, which obviously you can change to whatever you want. We've got a description which you can change, and we've got a download button and the video. So at the moment it looks pretty awful, so we're obviously going to need to change that later, but I'm just going to quickly explain what this code is. So in HTML you have containers. So containing elements are divs, for example. We're not going to go into semantic elements because this is only a simple tutorial, But what we want to do is we want to group everything into a container. So there's a self-closing, there is a div which has the content, it's got a header 1, and in this header 1 tag we have landing page code template, but I want to apply different styles to landing page. So I've wrapped it in a span tag and given it a class. Now a class we can apply styles to, and it's pretty easy to do. I'll be showing you how to do that. So we want to make sure we have landing page styled differently and code template also to be different to landing page. And we have our paragraph tag, which will contain this element, so just the description, which we can style. And we have a button, which obviously we're going to style, and you can add a link or whatever you want to your button. And we also have the video tag. So this will play automatically. It will be muted, and it will repeat on a loop. So make sure that you have the source attributes to link to your actual video. So in this tutorial, I just have my earth-video.mp4 file in the root. But if you're uploading it on something like WordPress or Shopify or wherever, make sure that you visit the link in a browser. And if the link in the browser is the accessible link to your video, then just copy and paste that entire link with the HTTPS prefix or whatever, and use that as your source, and then that will be correct. So at this stage, we have all of the content, but we need to do the styling next. So to demonstrate how I'm going to apply styles, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a CodePen window. It's just the same. It just means that the HTML is the same, and whenever I apply styles, you'll be able to see the immediate effect. So if you have something like WordPress or WooCommerce or whatever as the CMS or Shopify, you want to make sure that you have somewhere where you can add your styles, as mentioned before. So in that style sheet, what you'll want some CSS code. So here is the CSS, and I'm gonna uncomment it line by line so I can show you the impact it actually has on the view. So what we're going to want is we're going to want to apply some certain default styles to everything, hence the asterisk. Don't worry about these before and after pseudo elements, they're more advanced. But essentially, when we have CSS code and a web page without any styles, there are some default styles that are annoying and they're already applied to elements. So notice there is some spacing here. What we want to do is we want to make sure no margin is applied by default to our elements. So I'm gonna, by commenting in these lines, it's basically applying these styles. So make sure that you just copy the code basically. And we want to make sure no padding is applied by default. And so notice the button went smaller. We don't want any borders added to anything. And we want to have a default box sizing of border box. So one way of doing it, you can just add border box here, but if we add border box to the HTML element, then it applies it in a more safe way, because if you have external styles from a third-party library, then this way it won't affect it. Otherwise it might if you use box sizing border box on everything. So that is how to get some default styling. But border box, by the way, just means that the padding and borders won't affect the size of the element. So it's just a personal preference to a lot of people when they add styles. And we want to also add a font size, a default font size that makes one root M of 10 pixels. Now this is again getting more advanced, so you don't necessarily need to worry about this. So I'm just going to add a background color so you can just see everything. So by default, I want to change the font size of everything to 18 pixels. And one way of doing it is like this. I'm also going to make sure everything is central. I want the font family to be Arial, and you can change it to be whatever you want. You can adjust the line height as well, so that is just the spacing between each item. So if I, for example, make it 2.1, then you can see the change. Now, the color is something, so what I'm doing here, you can use hex codes for this, but let me explain. So if we go to the hex color wheel, then the hex code for white is FFFFFF. And that is the equivalent of the RGB of 255.255.255. So what I'm doing here is I could, for example, type hash and then FFFFFF, but I want to be able to control the opacity. So if I add 0.3, then you can see the opacity has changed. So I just want it to be ever so slightly faint rather than completely in your face, if that makes sense. So another thing we want to make sure that the body is the complete height and width of the viewport. Hence we need 100 viewport height and 100 viewport width, and we want everything to be centrally aligned. So if we display it as flex, we want to align vertically in the center and also horizontally in the center. So that is how to do that. Now the content, this hash content means select an ID, hence the hash, of content. So this is the div ID of content. So this contains the elements that we wanted to style, for example, the landing page headline, the description, and the button. So we want to apply styles to the container. So I'm just going to give it a background so you can see. And if, for example, you're on a mobile, then notice that this hugs the side of the screen. So you could add padding or margin to prevent this to some extent, but I just want to add a max width so that it doesn't hug the side of the viewport. So it's just more adaptive and better on mobiles. So for the header 1 tag, now remember that H1 is the landing page code template part. So we want to change the font size. So if I choose 5 rem, then it's going to make it larger. And that, by the way, will be 50 pixels. So you can add pixels if you want, but using something like M or rem is much better because it's more adaptable if someone, for example, a screen reader is on your page and they want to change the default font size, then it means it will adapt more easily. So I also want to change the font weight to 400. And for the emphasized text, now anything preceded by a period means class. So emphasized dash text, we have the span class of emphasized dash text. So this will apply styles only to the content within this span. And in this case, it's the landing page text. So what we want to do is we want to adjust the font weight. So you can add bold rather than 700. And we want to increase the font size slightly to 60 pixels. And we want to display it as a block. Now, displaying as a block means it's on its own line rather than sitting next to each other. So that's all that display block does. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to display that. So now the paragraph tag. Now remember, create a simple landing page with ease. That content is inside a P tag, which is a paragraph tag. And in this case, we want to just add some simple styles to this. So we want to increase the margin of top and bottom to 1.5 ems, and we want no margin on the left or right. So 1.5 em means top and bottom, and the second argument is 0. Now you can add different, so top, right, bottom, left. That is how it would apply if you wanted to add different margins. So we also want to change the size to 2.2 rem, which is 22 pixels, and that's all I'm going to do for now for this area. Now for the button, if you create a button, and we haven't added a class, we've just added a button tag. You can, of course, add an ID or class. So if there's only one, you can add an ID, but if there's multiple, just add a class. But in this case, I'm just targeting a button as there's only one on the page. So if you gave it a class of, I don't know, some button, then you could apply styles like this and add the styles inside the brackets. But first of all, what I want to do is I want to remove all of the annoying default styles. So if I add all unset, it basically removes everything by default. I want the text to be uppercase. I want the border to be 2 pixels solid white, and you can change this FFF to a hex code as showed before, or you can use the RGBA as well. Now I want to make sure there's no background by default. I want to add some padding. So top and bottom is 1 em, left and right is 2. I want to add a border radius so that it's completely circular, and I want to have a cursor of pointer when hovered over on, and I want to apply a transition when applying the button hover styles, hence we need the transition. So I also want to show you when we hover over it, we want to change the color to black, we want to change the background color to white, and the border color to black. So by hovering over it, we can just see it's applying some basic styles. So that is basically most of it. And one other thing we can do is there will be a background video div. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of display none, and this will make sense in a moment. Basically what we want, this pink div will basically be, it will be replaced by the background video. So this background video, yeah, it will cover this pink area, and what we want to do is make sure that this pink area, which will be the background video, is basically over the entire page. So what we want to do is give it a fixed position. So that is fixed to the page. We want to give it a width of 100% of its parent and height of 100% of its parent. So this background video class is going to be, it is a child of the body tag. By child, I mean you have the body tag and it is contained within this body tag. Hence it is a child of that body tag. So what this will do is when you have a percentage, it applies it. It is a percentage with respect to its parent, which is a percent of the body. So by making it 100%, we're basically making it 100 viewport height and 100 viewport width. So that is essentially that. And obviously we can't see any content, which we don't want. So we want to give it a z-index of -1 so that in the background we can see the actual content. We can see that above the actual background. So these are just some of the basic styles that we have now applied. Okay, so we want to apply these styles to our project. So I'm just going to copy everything, and to the linked style sheet, I'm going to paste everything inside. And if I now refresh the page, then as you can see, we're a lot closer to what we want. Obviously, we're not finished just yet, but we are a lot closer. So the next thing I want to do is I just want to show you some little object fit and object position styles. So in fact, if we first remove the pink background and the light green, wherever it is, so we have content of light green, if we just remove that, then it's obviously looking a lot better. But what we want to do is we want to demonstrate how to correctly add the object fit and object position of the background. So if I inspect, I'm using Google Chrome, by the way, highly recommended it. And if we are, for example, let me just show you. So if we add an object fit of cover, then it covers the entire viewport. But your video might be different to mine, and I want to make sure you can adjust it to the position that you want. So you can use the object position property. So if I, for example, increase the value, it is basically moving the position of this object. And it could be that on a different viewport, you want to apply a different style. So if we go over to mobiles, what you might want is you might want an object position that's slightly different to what I have here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to comment in these so you can see, and I'm going to refresh the page. And as you can see, we have the background pretty much where we want it. However, it's one thing that is good to note is if you want to have different styles on a mobile, then what you want to do is you want to use a media query. Now, when you create CSS, it's good to apply a mobile first mindset. So if I go to the mobile viewport, what we can see is how it looks currently on a mobile. So what we want to do is we might want to change it slightly when we get to the desktop. So if I want to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say when the minimum width is 768 pixels, and by the way, 768 pixels is a tablet. So when the minimum width is 768, so this will apply to tablets and above, I want to just slightly change the position of this object to left. And as you can see, it has, if we uncomment and comment back in, it's just slightly changed the position. So whatever the video you're using on your project, just bear in mind, you might want to change this to right or top or bottom, or you might want something like left center, for example, where you can control. If you'll easily be able to figure out what you want if you just change the values and then just see how it looks. So that is essentially how you can get this page to look pretty much as you want. So that pretty much sums up how to create a landing page template with a video background. Now, before you go, one thing I would ask is, how do you know which video is the best performing video? How do you know what content, for example, the header tags, is the best performing content? Now, one thing I would say is I don't know your context. I don't know what your landing page is for. I don't know whether you use paid ads, whether you want to optimize your return on ad spend, or whether you want to just improve your conversion rate in general. And one good way to do that would be to create a simple and free A/B test. Now, that would mean, for example, 50% of your website visitors could see this background video, and then the other 50% would see the other background video. So to do that, all you would need to do is for the control, add this CSS, and for the variant, add that CSS. So I have another video that shows how to do that if you're interested. And by the way, you can, of course, download the template for free from this page. Thanks for watching.